Hello, my name is Martina Bray. I'm WGU student and welcome to my presentation about sensory learning method. According to the Center for Disease Control website, published in 2010, there is 1 in 68 children diagnosed with autism each year, which is a 123% increase since 2002. That's simply overwhelming statistic. We don't really know the causes of autism, and the treatment options are very limited. My own son was diagnosed with autism, and I also was looking for some kind of help, treatment, cure, anything that I can do to help him. And I found one article in Positive Health magazine in 2001, which talked about sensory learning method created by Mary Bowles. Research suggests that the Bowles sensory learning method is effective because it can help children with developmental delays and adults with mild traumatic brain injuries. It can help children with developmental delays because most dysfunctions are sensory in nature, and therefore this method focuses on retraining how our brain responds to these inputs. According to the Sensory Learning Center International website, which is Mary Bowles' website, this is the only therapy that combines well-researched and practiced photostimulation, acoustic stimulation, and vestibular motion stimulation therapies together. I have printed a visual aid from Autism Angels Purse website where you can see why it works together. When you subject a child to, let's say, acoustic stimulation and they don't like the sounds, they can simply defend themselves against it. They can cover their ears, they can tune it out, they can look at something else. But when you subject them to photostimulation, acoustic stimulation, and rhythmic motion at the same time, it's overwhelming. They can defend themselves against all these sensory inputs at the same time. They have to relax and accept them. And that's when the therapy actually starts. It happens in a darkened room. The child is lying on a table that moves in a circular motion. It's a gentle rocking movement that could remind you of when you were a baby and you were being rocked. You have headphones that are playing different frequencies and different volumes of very specific music, and your eyes are drawn to a light source above you that circulates through 6 different lights at different brightness, and it dims and brightens according to what is required. The therapy has amazing results. I found many case studies on a Sensory Integration and Learning Center website from 2005 to 2013, and I chose one case study for you for today. It's about a 4-year-old girl who was diagnosed with autism at 23 months. She had problems with her language, social relatedness, eye contact, frequent temper tantrums, head banging, and she was walking in circles at unusual times. During the first 30 days of the therapy, the little girl began to be more aware of her environment by noticing things she has never noticed before. She responded to communication directed specifically to her, began to say her own name, and her eye contact improved significantly. At a 1-year evaluation, the doctor noted remarkable progress away from autistic symptoms. And at 2-year evaluation, the doctor wrote, "The patient doesn't demonstrate symptoms of an autistic spectrum disorder or any other disorder." This therapy can also help adults with mild traumatic brain injuries or post-traumatic stress disorder because this method stimulates the participant's sensory system to learn and relearn subconscious reception. While sensory integration occurs right from the beginning of the creation at womb, the brain never stops creating new maps of experiences. But when there is a traumatic event or an injury, these maps receive some kind of a hole or a gap. And the therapy here, the idea is that the brain is able to reorganize itself and fill some of these gaps and holes while at the state of complete relaxation. And once you fill in the missing parts, you are able to handle the more complex skills that our life requires. I have, again, once borrowed a case study from Sensory Integration Learning Center website, 2005 to 2013. It involved a 39-year-old male executive that suffered a mild brain injury in a car accident. 18 months prior to therapy, the patient couldn't hold a thought or finish a sentence. have any type of multiple input, or even listen to a radio. Speech was deliberate, he was always searching for words, he felt panicked, depressed, and he was able to return to work only in off hours when it was completely quiet, and he was only able to perform about 10% of his output before. Within the first few sessions starting the sensory learning intervention therapy, he experienced improvement. He started to listen to the radio again. He was able to tell a joke and remember the punchline. He was able to mentally calculate a tip at a restaurant. And no longer overwhelmed by noisy social situation, he eventually returned to work at a full capacity during regular working hours. So as you can see, research suggests that the Ball sensory learning method is effective because it can help children with developmental delays and adults with mild traumatic brain injuries. Its neurological reorganization is not an easy fix. It requires determination from the parents. You have to be completely involved, and you can see some results, but maybe 3 to 6 months later, and there could be very little. But if you have a child with autism, little result can go a long way. I would like to conclude my presentation with my own story. When my son was in the 4th grade, they started to do a math assessment, a weekly test that had 100 questions, and they had 6 minutes to complete these 100 questions. My son can tell you the 100 correct answers, but he could never write them down, not in 6 minutes. The allocated time was just too short, and every 3 months they have dropped the time by 1 minute. So even though he practiced the whole entire 4th grade, basically every day, he could barely get it to 6 minutes at the end of the 4th grade. When he entered 5th grade, they have announced that the math sheet had to be completed in 3 minutes, and he simply gave up. He could complete anywhere between 25 to 50% at the allocated time. We started sensory learning program in September, and at the end of November, my son came home with the biggest smile on his face, and he had a math sheet in his hand, and it was 100% completed and 100% correct. It's a small victory, but when you're a parent of a child with autism, it's major. So please try this therapy because it can help.